Hey guys, and welcome to checkpoint 2 of SDL. So, in this checkpoint, what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be organizing our code because that's extremely crucial to being able to moving on. So, we're basically going to make a few functions that will help us out and make our code neater. Now, we won't be able to put everything in their own functions, such as things like creating a window and things like that, but we're going to make a few. So, let's create a little section right here. But before we do anything, we need to make sure that we include string, because we're going to be using that in just a second. So, the first thing you'll notice that we have to do often is we have to do error reporting, such as this. And so we can make that a little neater with a error reporting function. So it's going to be void log SDL error. And it'll take a constant string called message. So basically, it's just going to say that the message, it's just going to say that the message failed. And it's going to tell you the error. So pretty much what we've been doing before. So now if we want to use that, such as like right here, we could just replace it with log SDL error and SDL init. But we're not going to do that right now because we're actually going to move all of this into its own initializing function. So let's call this int init. So this function is just going to initialize SDL and SDL image, and it'll return a value other than 0 if we get an error. So let's just copy and paste this into here, and it should work fine. And then we want to replace these lines with our new log SDL error function that we just created, and we'll pass it SDL init. And over here, we'll pass this one image init. Alright, so that's pretty much good. All we have to do is return 0 if there was no error. And then what we have to do is just call that function. So we'll also check for if there was an error, and if so, we'll terminate the program. So if init does not return 0, then we're going to return 1 so that the program will terminate. Alright, so we've taken care of that, and down here we just have our window and renderer creation, so we're not going to mess with that. But what we are going to mess with is this place where we load an image. So let's go up and create a function for loading images. So it's going to return an SDL texture, and we're going to call it load texture. So we're going to pass it the renderer that we want to use the texture with, the path to the file, and that's all. Alright, so first we want to load the texture. So we're going to create a new texture. and then we're just going to load it from a file with image load texture, and we're going to pass it the renderer and path, and then we'll check for errors as usual. So if it's null, then we need to call log SDL error. Alright, that's good. And then we'll just return the texture. Alright, so now we can go back down here and we can replace this with SDL texture image equals load texture, and we pass it our renderer and the path to the file. And that's it. Well, okay. Actually, what we should do is oh, never mind. It's already taken care of. Okay, so the next thing to do is to create a render texture function, because right here, in this example, rendering a texture is pretty simple, but so this last flag, this last argument to the function, is the destination rect, or where the image should be put on the renderer. And so we've left it as null because we want this picture to fill the whole screen. But if you don't want it to fill the whole screen, then things get a little more complicated. You have to create a destination rect every time you want to render something. So we're going to create a rendering function. So it's going to be void render texture. So we pass it the renderer that we want to render it on, our texture that we want to render, and then we pass it the X and the Y. Alright, so the first thing that we need to do is to create an SDL rect. And this will be the destination rect, which is where the image will go on the screen. So if the destination rect isn't the same size as the image, it'll just stretch it or warp it or whatever it has to do to make it fit inside the destination rect. So, oh, whoops. So we're going to create a new rect called DST, and an SDL rect is made up of four, well, it has four variables. It has X, Y, and then the width and height. So we're going to make its X values and its X and Y values, the values we were passed. And then to get the width and height of the texture, so we know what size to blend it at, it's a little harder. We have to use a function called SDL query texture. So what this will do is you pass it the texture, and then you pass it the format and the access, which we don't care about, so we can leave them null. And so then we pass it references to the width and height variables. So query texture will just get the width and height of our texture, and it will set those variables to those. So we're going to pass it the width and height of the destination. So it'll fill those in with the width and height of the texture. And then what we can do is we can just render the texture. So we're going to do SDL render copy, and we're going to pass it the renderer texture null as the source rect because we don't want to crop the image, and then our destination rect so that it'll go to the place that we want on the screen, which is specified with the x and y coordinates. Alright, we actually have to take the reference of that because it takes a pointer. Alright, so that's it for the functions. Now let's just replace this rendering line with our new function. So we'll say render texture, and we'll give it the renderer, our image, and then we'll render it at 0, 0, so it's at the top left of the screen, and it'll fill the whole screen. Alright, so hopefully this shouldn't change your output at all, and if so, that's good. So let's take a look. There we go, it's working fine, and hopefully this is what you see too. Alright, thanks for watching. This one was a little shorter than the others, but it's very crucial to organize your code because these things can get pretty complicated, and we might make a texture class later on in another checkpoint, but and that will help you organize your code even further so you can render textures easier and put them at different spots. But that's enough for now, so I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.